This evening we're going to be looking at the subject of your hour. It is something that Jesus tells those who have come to arrest Him. It is the night before He is going to be crucified. He is going to be tried that very night and would be crucified the next day. And let's begin. Luke 22, beginning in verse 47. And while he was still speaking, behold, a multitude. And he who was called Judas, one of the 12, went before them and drew near to Jesus to kiss him. But Jesus said to him, Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss? When those around him saw what was going to happen, they said to him, Lord, shall we strike with the sword? And one of them struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his right ear. And Jesus answered and said, permit even this. And he touched his ear and healed him. Then Jesus said to the chief priest, captains of the temple, and the elders who had come, have you come out as against a robber with swords and clubs? When I was with you daily in the temple, you did not try to seize me. But this is your hour and the power of darkness. This is your hour. And in this, let's just discuss what we read. Jesus is in Gethsemane. He has been praying there. He has been in great sorrow. He has been under a tremendous amount of pressure. He has been praying. Meanwhile, the men who are with him are falling asleep, and he cannot keep them awake. Now come this multitude, this army, and they've come to take one man. And they've come at night, and they come here in the Garden of Gethsemane simply because they were afraid to do so in the daylight at the temple. They knew where Jesus had been teaching. They had heard him there. They knew that daily he would be there in Jerusalem and he would be teaching publicly. And as he said, you could have come and taken me anytime that you want to. You didn't have to come out at night and do this. You could have done it there very conveniently. But they're not going to do that because they fear the people. They're very afraid of what the people might do. They can't predict them. And while the rulers did not believe that, let's just go back to John the Baptist, that John the Baptist was a prophet of God. The rulers didn't believe that, but your basic person in Jerusalem did. The people of Israel did believe that. And also, further in this, while the rulers denied that Jesus of Nazareth is the Christ, you had people that they were willing to confess that. They believed it, whether they confessed it or not. And so they weren't quite sure how things may go. So they get someone, they hire Judas Iscariot, who's very willing to do it. Judas is let's just face it, he's a thief and he's an extremely cold man. But he betrays the Christ and they come to get him. And Jesus says, but this is your hour. And then he adds, and the power of darkness. It's not just yours. It's not just yours. You're actually not acting alone. You don't realize it. And this is what he's telling them. You don't realize it, but you're not acting alone. It's you and the powers of darkness that you can't even see. That is behind this as well. Now, we go to Hebrews 11 and verse 25. Choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin. Okay, now this doesn't regard the Christ, this regards Moses as a matter of fact. But here is this idea of this is your hour, that he would rather, and that actually the righteous mentioned in Hebrews 11 would rather suffer affliction with the people of God than to have this passing pleasure of sin. That it doesn't last very long and it's over. It's entirely over. Not too long ago, I was watching a concert, not the whole thing, but just a little segment of a concert, and with commentary about it. And the main person, the lead singer of that concert, is now years dead. And they were saying, with this concert, that this was the absolute height of their popularity. This was they had control over the crowd. They'd never had anything like this before or since from that time. And I can't help but think, and how fast was it? Was it 20 minutes? Was it an hour? Was it 2 hours? How long was it that they were actually at the peak? And then it's done. And it wasn't too many years after that point that that singer died. And now it is truly done. It's over. And of course, he would be in the Hadean realm. I'm not going to answer one way or another what he may or I don't know the man. I have my thoughts about it, but he would be in the Hadean realm of knowing very well that it was fast, and that his time to be just so incredible, more popular than pretty much anybody else on the earth, at least for that segment of time, was quick, and it's gone. It's gone. And here is this idea of just the passing pleasures of sin. Never to return, never to come back. Now, the New King James does put its passing pleasures of sin. The King James puts the pleasures of sin for a season. For a season. And I can tell you from just the things that I've witnessed. I remember when I was a child. Just to give a little bit of background, I am grandchild number 10. Okay, and there are more after me. But I'm grandchild number 10. And so I have cousins that are considerably older than me, by more than 10 years, considerably older than me. And when I was a child, I saw those older cousins and the life that they lived, and it was a very rowdy, drunken mess. And I saw that, and then I also saw that it came to an end. Now, they didn't die, but it was passing. It came to an end with all their friends and all that when something, I'm not exactly sure everything that happened, but the whole thing just broke apart. But it was just that brief, it truly was a brief season. That's what it was, just a matter of a few years perhaps, and then that was done. That was, it's gone at that point. But even if we count the pleasures of sin for a season as being a lifetime, even if we count that, it's still over in a flash. It's over. Time passes, and it continues to pass, and you can't stop it. You can't pause it. You can't go back. As much as we may want to, we can't. Now, continuing, but this is your hour. Romans 5 and 6, for when we were still without strength, in due time, Christ died for the ungodly. In due time. In the hour that was designed. In the hour where He was to be crucified. And it's not until that due time that it's going to happen. Herod, who wants Him dead as a newborn, cannot do it. He can't do it. As much as he would want to do it, he can't do it. And the enemies of Christ that plotted His death and wanted Him dead not long after He started His ministry couldn't do it. Nazareth being one. We'll see that in just a minute. No one could kill the Christ until it was time, and they were completely powerless until it was their hour. Until it was the proper hour, and it's regarded as theirs. In Matthew 26 and verse 53, or do you not think that I cannot now pray to my Father, and He will provide me with more than 12 legions of angels? Now He's answering this concerning the cross. That if he wanted to avoid the cross, and this is him saying it, not me. This is him saying it. If he wanted to avoid the cross, all he had to do was ask, and the Father would bring 12 legions of angels. How then could the Scriptures be fulfilled that it must happen thus? Well, if 12 legions of angels came and stopped it, then yeah, the Scriptures could not have been fulfilled. The prophecies would have had to have said something else entirely. But the Scriptures can't be fulfilled if you have the whole thing disrupted by 12 legions of angels, which Christ said he could do. And I'm not going to get into an argument with someone that would say he could never have done it. Well, he didn't. No, he didn't. But he said he could. I'm going to take his word for it. You can take that, and no one here is going to question that anyway. But here in Luke 4 and verse 28, beginning there, so all in the synagogue, when they heard these things, were filled with wrath. This is when he went back to Nazareth. He has left Nazareth and he has started his ministry. Of course, it's going to begin with his baptism by John. And from that point, he's going into the wilderness 40 days. He's going to be fasting there, preparing himself for the ministry and everything that occurs there, which leads to his death on the cross. He's preparing for that. Those 40 days, he's there in the wilderness by himself, fasting, praying, and readying himself. Then he begins his ministry and begins miracles and teaching in places like Capernaum and the like. And then he goes back home. He goes to Nazareth. They've heard things, and they're interested that he has returned. They've heard things. Here is the young boy they once knew. And here is the one who grew up with everybody else's kids. They know him, and now things are being said about him, and he returns. And in the synagogue, he reads Isaiah 53 and then begins to make comment on it by saying these things are now being fulfilled in your hearing. They're being fulfilled now. This is being fulfilled. So all those in the synagogue, when they heard these things, were filled with wrath and rose up and thrust him out of the city. And they led him to the brow of the hill on which their city was built, that they might throw him down over the cliff. They meant to kill him. Well, he just started his ministry. He's supposed to die on the cross. Well, this isn't going to happen. Then passing through the midst of them, he went his way. So this would be of them pushing him, getting him to the cliff, and then all of a sudden, okay, where did he go? And he's out from them. He passed through their midst. He passed away through them. And they were not able to kill him. And he says that a prophet is not without honor except where he grew up, in his own country. He's not without honor except there. And they prove the point in all this. They prove the point that he can never, in their mind, they can't see that this son of a carpenter could be the Christ. They knew him then. They could not see that this child who had been the son of Mary, and his brothers are there, his sisters are there, that he could be the Christ, and his brothers also did not believe that until after the resurrection. But we see in John 7:1, after these things Jesus walked in Galilee, for he did not want to walk in Judea because the Jews sought to kill him. They sought to kill him now, right then and there. Now he's going to go back to Judea, but in due time. He's going to go when it is time for him to be crucified. Therefore they sought to take him, but no one laid hands on him because his hour had not yet come. It's not here yet. And this is the wrong point, the wrong way. This is going to involve other people, such as Judas Iscariot. Now, Judas, by James 7, hadn't made any kind of deals with anybody. That's going to come later. John 7, he hasn't done it yet. And John 7, I assume he's only a thief at this point and hasn't gone any further and should be dealing with this problem. Luke 22 and now 53. When I was with you daily in the temple, you did not try to seize me. But we go back to this. This is your hour and the power of darkness. This is your hour. Do as you think best, because now is the time. Now God has set aside that you can do what you think you're going to do. I've put down do as you think best. You could also put down do your worst. Do whatever you think you must do, because, and this is the scary part, this is all you got. This is it. This is all you have. And if they understood what it meant, there's a lot of things that they saw and witnessed that if they put it together and put an honest heart to it in viewing it, they would understand this is wrong. This is completely wrong. But here is the time you will never forget. Eternally, you'll never forget it. Eternally, for the rest of your life on this earth, you'll never forget it. For eternity, you will never forget it. This is your hour, and this is all you have. This is your hour. Do what you think you need to do. And we go to, I don't have a slide for this, but we go to Psalm 2. And Psalm 2, why do the nations rage and the people plot a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against His anointed, that is, against His Messiah, saying, let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us. They are doing this. Psalm 2 is showing that hour. Showing that hour of where this is going to happen. And they now have the opportunity. And He's not going to pass through their midst anymore. And it's not going to be where He is avoiding it because His hour has not come. His hour has come. And He accepts it. He's not going to call 12 legions of angels because we, as the creation of God, would be in a great amount of harm. What love would there be in it? Well, there would be no show of love from God. There would be no show. But the very thing, the very action that's required for our salvation has been avoided. He could have avoided it, but He doesn't. He doesn't. Now, this is the hour you've been waiting for, even though they say they've not been waiting for it. They say they've never plotted against Him. They have been. You are mad. You have a demon if you think we've been plotting against you, as they go back and they plot against Him. They have been. And this is what they've been waiting for in all of this, and they are going to fulfill prophecy because it concerns them as well. Yes, it concerns the Christ, but someone's going to crucify Him. Someone's going to get together and do whatever scheming, whatever things have to be done, and they're going to put it into place, put it into action, just exactly as Psalm 2 says, also as Psalm 22 says, also as we can see from the book of Isaiah speaking of Him. We can see these things, and from Zechariah we can see these things. They are fulfilling prophecy. The high priests are doing precisely what God said they would do. Pontius Pilate is doing precisely what God said he would do. And the officers, the Roman soldiers, they're doing precisely what was described. And then you have those rulers of the Sanhedrin court. they're doing precisely what has been described of them. And what they're going to do concerning the Christ will be done. But in what he says, this is your hour and the power of darkness, you're a pawn in this, you just don't even know it. And probably don't even care. Maybe you should, but you are a pawn being used in the hands of someone who's extraordinarily wicked. They wanted to say that he had the power of Beelzebub to cast out demons. Well, actually, it's the power of Satan that is the one truly behind the scenes. Truly the one who is pushing this forward and using these men, with whatever motives they need. Motive of being cast out of the synagogue, motive of wanting to raise their position in society, motive of money for someone like Judas Iscariot. I can only assume that's what it was. Somehow, all these motives. Motive of cowardice with someone like Pontius Pilate. They are all pawns in a very, very dangerous position. Very dangerous. They're being used by someone. But this is your hour and the power of darkness. The power of darkness was beyond their sight. We go to Ephesians chapter 6, beginning in verse 12. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. What's being described here? This sounds like there's more than Satan. And there is. And we should already know that. There's more than Satan who is part of this. Now, we've been talking about that night, just the night when he was going to be tried, that night at Gethsemane, and he's talking about this is your hour and the power of darkness. Well, the power of darkness continues on. When Paul is writing this, the power of darkness still is present when he writes this, and saying that you can't handle this power on your own. There's no way you can. You're going to become just as helpless as those other men were if you do not have the whole armor of God, because you're fighting against something you can't even see and you don't even understand. Smarter than you, more powerful than you, has a influence over you, and you don't even know it. You don't even know it. And here it is, those principalities, powers. Let's just look at some of these words. Principalities, those are rulers. Powers, that is authorities, rulers of the darkness of this age, spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. Spiritual hosts. Okay, a host, one individual is not a host. Satan cannot be a host. But he can have a host with him, and he can be part of a host. And those are your spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. They were involved in all of this. This is their hour as well. And this is precisely what, Satan has been wanting to break the Christ from the beginning. The line of David going to the Christ was almost wiped out. Almost. At one point in time by Athaliah. Athaliah just needed one more, and that was it. And that happened to be the line that continues on. You have eventually the Christ. Mary and then the Christ. Satan was trying to kill him when he was newly born, using Herod. Satan had been trying to corrupt him from who knows how many times. Who knows how many times. Satan knew who this was. Satan knew this was God in the flesh. He knew that. Satan was well aware of that. He tries to corrupt him by tempting him in the wilderness. He tries using Peter to say, this is not going to happen. But Jesus rebukes him. Satan, get behind me, Satan. He rebukes him in that. Satan is trying everything he can to destroy him. And then when it comes to the cross, he's going to try to do everything he can to make it more painful, to make it more agonizing, to not just break his body and kill him, but to break his spirit, to break his soul, to do everything he can against his own Creator. And yes, Satan was created by the Word of God. Because all things were created by him, but all things were created good. Satan just turned bad. Everybody on earth is created good. It's just that people turn bad. People go the way that they decide to go. And some of them make terrible decisions. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God. Something that obviously the rulers, Judas Iscariot, Pontius Pilate, cared nothing about. Nothing whatsoever. And they had their hour, and it's over. And it's not too long from the point of where you have the Sanhedrin saying, His blood be on us, to where they are telling the apostles, this would be after Pentecost, you are trying to put this man's blood on us. Well, you said on us and on our children, as a matter of fact, but now they don't want it. Now they don't want it. They don't want to have his death blamed on them. And the fact is that they cannot rightfully explain how there's nobody in the tomb anymore. There's no one in the tomb. And their worst fear has come to pass. That Jesus of Nazareth is the Christ. As a matter of fact, Peter states that fact in Acts chapter 2, verse 36. Let all the house of Israel know assuredly that God has made this Jesus, whom you crucified, both Lord and Christ. Now, it's bad enough to have been in that crowd and to have been one of those yelling out in the mob, crucify him. Okay, that's bad enough. But for those who were in hip deep and further of where they were personally responsible, they're not just cheerleaders on the side, but they are actively involved in beating him, actively involved in lying against him, actively involved in wanting him dead and doing whatever they needed to do to pull the political strings, to say the right things to Pilate. That, okay, they're at front and center of this. The very one you crucified, God has made Lord and Christ. Now some of them, when they heard this, they were cut to the heart and said to Peter and the rest of the apostles, Men and brethren, what shall we do? Now not all of them said that. Not all of them said that. But some of them did. And they saw the problem that they were in, and the problem was huge. Now, today, things have not changed in the human condition. We can talk about that. Sin is still sin. There's no new ones. Unfortunately, there's no old ones that aren't done anymore. It's all the same. Same things occurring. Same things happening. Same temptations. Same the wiles or schemes of the devil. It's the same thing. There's nothing new that hasn't been done for centuries upon centuries. We're just the latest group having to deal with it. And we are here with Christ giving us the opportunity and the strength to get through it. the opportunity of salvation, the opportunity to have Him as protector and as advocate, the opportunity to be able to know the truth and accept it. Some people know it, they just don't accept it. But to know it, you accept it, and then you have that help in every spiritual blessing that is found in Christ. It is not a minor thing. It's not just a thing of a hobby. This is your life. This is where your life should be centered. Everything. And this is our hour, if you will. This is our time. And it is brief. And we can do with Christ whatever it is that we think we need to do. We can be obedient to Him and truly consider Him Lord, and our life, in fact, fulfill that belief. Or we can reject Him. Call Him Lord all you want, but if you reject Him, if you're not doing the things that He called us to do, you've rejected Him. But in rejecting Him, your hour is just as brief as anybody else's, and that is that. It's over. And for any rejection of Him, it's precisely as was done by that Sanhedrin court. It's the same sin. It's the same seriousness. There's nothing less serious just because you don't have Him physically in front of you. You've got His words physically in front of you. And you can know the truth. And the truth is exactly what we need. And the truth is that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, and we are to obey Him in the time that we have. And we ask this evening, any adjustments that need to be made, let's make it. If it needs to be a public confession or repentance of a public sin, then let's do that. If it's a matter of going to God in prayer over a private matter, then do that. If it's a matter of correcting something, do that. Whatever it is, let's correct our lives and do what God has called us to do. Let's redouble our efforts. Let's do more. Let's do better. This is the hour that we have. And we're not given much. Let's use our lives as best we can for Him. We ask this evening, if you need to respond to the invitation, that you come as we stand and sing.